What is up, everyone? How we doing? And welcome back to Kevin and Zach React. I'm your host, Zach Bollinger. Kevin might be here today. I'm gonna just keep it up front with you guys. He might be. He's got another cat issue. He's dealing with a cat thing. Only Kevin would be dealing with the cat thing. But we're here. It is officially March 12th. I say that as we're not 12 days into March, but it is March, baby. It's March. We're talking hoops. We got the Big Ten tournament going on right now. Thanks, Ohio State, for blowing another parlay of mine. That was awesome right before we hopped on. But a lot of fun things happening. The Maryland basketball team, the Crab Five, is killing it, number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Could we be set up for another rematch against Michigan State? So many things that we're going to talk about. And then we're just talking all college hoops. We're talking tournament previews. We're just talking shop. And joining me to talk shop. Actually, someone I'm going to say used to do my old podcast with, old podcast partner of mine, now producer of Mad About Hoops out in the Columbus, Ohio area. So welcome on the show, Jacob Reimer. Reimer, dude, how are we doing, dude?
What's going on, man? Hey, it's March. There's no better time of year. The sun is shining. We're getting into the 70s right now in Ohio. Really can't beat it. It just feels like March. I know we're in March, but it just has that feeling to it. And the basketball itself has been incredible to kind of go with it, setting up for the next couple of weeks with the NCAA tournament. It's going to be electric for sure.
I don't know if there's any scientific evidence behind this at all, but there's just something weird about college basketball. Is always great. There's always crazy things happening, but like it legitimately hit March 1st this year and like all hell broke loose. Yeah. Like we just upsets, like random buzzer beaters from 3/4 of the court to beat Maryland. I mean, we just, everything.
I wasn't going to bring it up. I was going to say like the universe kind of knew that March was near when that happened. It was like, okay, yeah, March is this weekend. It's going to happen. We're right here. We're right on the doorstep. Let's just have something crazy happen to begin with.
Yeah. So that was a whole different thing. That was a hell of a game. And maybe we're in for a rematch down the line in the Big Ten tournament, but it is just incredible. It feels like this season, especially for Maryland fans and just people who in the area around here, it's the most excited they've been, and really everyone, since the unfortunate 2020 year. You know, that was the best team Maryland's had in a decade. And it felt like if there was going to be a team that made noise, it was going to be that 2020 team. Ends up the season gets canceled, no tournament. So just it feels good that Maryland's got a solid squad. Again, the Crab Five. So, I mean, great players. You got stud freshman, Derek Queen, and you got one hell of a nickname. So really a lot of boxes checked in Maryland right now.
Yeah, the vibes are rocking. This actually is the 5-year anniversary of when the tournament was then canceled because of COVID. So crazy that it's already been 5 years from then. Still feels like that was just yesterday. And yeah, that Maryland team was legit. And yeah, like when I think of Maryland, I think of like old ACC back into like
which is where
early 2000s. Yeah,
which is where I mean, everyone. I think we can all agree in the chat as well. If you have something different, you can. But yeah. Maryland belongs in the ACC. I still don't. Especially Maryland basketball. Maryland basketball belongs in the ACC.
That and the ACC tournament always needs to be in Greensboro.
Yes. So
I'm with it. Like when I think of this team with the Crab Five, like I think of North Carolina bias here behind me with the list of the national championships behind me, but they had that team a few years ago, the Iron Five. They had a cool nickname. Had the vibes going into the tournament with that win in Cameron, Coach K's last year, and then went on that run. Brady Manick was just the guy that brought all the vibes with the flowing hair and was just lighting it up from everywhere. But this Maryland team is way different than what that North Carolina team was. They really get after defensively, 9th right now in KenPom in their defensive efficiency. They're in the top 40 of offense, which is the metrics you want to be in based off of that theory of winning a national championship, where it's like the last so many champions dating back to like 2000 or something like that. We're in the top 40 of offense and top 25 of defense. And right now Maryland fits that metric. Love Derek Queen. He's a guy that I think with his style of play can sweep a nation because he can finish at the rim. He can create off the dribble. He's a great passer. He can stretch the floor, can kind of just do it all. And just is a joy to watch on the basketball court.
Yeah. And I like, you're talking about the KenPom things. Maryland going into this season, and especially early on, it was never, and under Willard, it's never been a question of, hey, is the defense going to be okay? The defense has always been there. That's something he does.
Mm-hmm.
He's always preaching defense. He's got those guys flying around. You talk about the pressure they put on other teams. The defense was always going to be there. The question was whether or not this offense, if this offense was going to be able to take that step. Obviously, you got guys like Gillespie, Rodney Rice, who are just really taking over at the guard positions. And then, like you said, Derek Queen, we can talk about, there's the Crab Five, obviously, as we've been mentioning. And it's all 5 of them together. But Derek Queen has this ability, and you kind of see it sometimes where, me and my friend talk about this. It's almost like randomly he'll remember he's the best player on the court, and he'll just go like a 3-minute stretch where he's just going to take over. He's going to take every ball to the hoop. He's going to grab every single rebound. He's going to block every shot. It's like he literally just remembers suddenly, like, wait a second, I'm the best player on this court. Like, I can just do this. And that's what I think gives Maryland that little edge, is they have that guy that if things are kind of not hitting well and you need to get back into a game, you need somebody to kind of take over in a big moment. You don't always love it being a freshman. You would like for the experience to be more there, but the kid's got the talent to be able to take over a game at any moment.
Yeah, you don't typically like it to be a freshman or truly in a March NCAA tournament setting a big, but he is not your traditional big where he can take a guy that is his size but not as quick as him out on the perimeter and then just clear out a side and take him right to the rim and finish. Draw a foul maybe, which could be huge, getting a guy in foul trouble. But I do think that Maryland has the guard play too to get when it gets down into it in a tight game with Gillespie, with Rodney Rice, with those guys. I think those guards are capable of getting a big bucket when needed. And with the defense that they have, what they apply on the perimeter from the guards, they can create turnovers and start points in transition and get those kind of stops. So it is, yes, Derek Queen can be that guy to where you rely on down the stretch of a game. But I do think that Maryland has the capability with these guards to also do it as well.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest thing is the shooting ability of Gillespie, of Rice, of Miguel, is that they have been this big boost of when they're knocking down shots. This Maryland team, there are not many teams better than them. If they're playing their game, if they can get shots to fall, especially the 3-point shot, if they can work inside to out, drive and dish. I see Hunter over here saying, only thing that's a tough matchup is when a team can plug in the middle of 7-footers, eliminating drive and dish opportunities. So yeah, it's
to that though. They just went into Ann Arbor that has 2 7-footers and they dominated them, but they did that with forcing turnovers because Michigan is the worst in the Big Ten at taking care of the ball. So that's where they can counter it with beating teams that way with their defense.
Yeah, and just a little side note because you brought it up. It's unreal Michigan's inability to hold on to the basketball.
Yeah.
You watch them and you'll see stuff online and in the things that's Michigan just turns it over all the time. You're like, oh, okay. Then you're watching and you're like, they're only getting a shot up half the time. It feels like. And that's what is just mind-boggling to me when you have a team like that. But we'll get into other teams in the Big Ten in a second. kind of focusing on Maryland right now, and I got to shout out my guy Chris on Twitter, one of the best Maryland fans out there. We're talking Maryland basketball, Maryland football, goes to everything. One of the good ones, die hard. So shout out Chris for always being there, good and bad times for Maryland. But, it's something where we've been talking about the Crab Five, but that kind of has been Maryland this year. It's the five. Yeah. It's not every day you go and look and Maryland's got pretty much three guys that are about to average 30 minutes a game. Guys you might get a 2-3 minute, quick break before one of the timeouts, but then you're back out there and you're relied upon. And the biggest thing is, okay, so far they've shown an ability they haven't gotten tired at the end. They've been able to finish these games. They're not getting sloppy with the ball at the end, and they're able to finish. But it's foul trouble can very much derail a game plan for Maryland. They're not playing well. Maybe they get behind. They have to run it a little more. Guys do get tired. We talk about you need stars in March, but I want your opinion, Reimer. Can Maryland go far? We'll talk win the Big Ten, then maybe, make a run at the Elite Eight. Is it possible for a team like this to go far relying pretty much solely on five guys?
So, yeah, you don't typically see that happen often. And I'd go back to the Iron Five. Now, their draw was perfect. They did have a game, though, against Baylor, a number 1 seed, where they got in foul trouble. But you also had RJ Davis go for 30 in that game. And you have an Armando Bacot who's just a walking double-double. Brady Manick was lighting it up in that game. But they had to play UCLA, making the cross-country trip. It was in Philly, favors a UNC crowd. Then you get St. Peter's in the Elite Eight. So it's really all about path and how it sets up for Maryland.
St. Peter's was the Peacocks, right? I was just remembering.
Yes.
Was that?
Yeah.
Okay, I was making sure. I was like, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. God, what a stash.
That was either going into that game, we were either going to get first time ever of North Carolina and Duke or the lowest seed ever to make a Final Four. And so there was a lot of history on that game for sure. But still, to that, path set up perfectly for them. Maryland's got the tools, though, to where, like, you've seen them win a game in the 80s. I know they didn't win it. I hate to go back to it and bring it back up, but that Michigan State game, they were right there in it, and they had a chance to win. You can
argue they played a horrific game. And now you have to also admit, did Michigan State play well? No, but it's, you prove that, like you said, they can win in every way. If you have to win in the 80s, they can win. If you have to win in the 50s, they can win it. Can they? I don't want to say it's got to be the perfect storm, but when you are relying on five, if even we saw against Penn State, Rice, the next game, he was 1 for 12, I believe, shooting the ball before he hit the big bucket at the end that sealed the deal, which won when he was the one shooting it. All props to him, but I audibly said, "Don't you dare." Like, I was like, are we about to? I was like, the guy shooting 1 for 12, taking the biggest shot of the game. And I was like, a floater at that?
Hey, he's up for the big moments like that Indiana game. He drilled the big shot.
Yeah. And Ryan, we're talking about in Ohio State. We got Steve talking about Maryland lost to. That was also another. Maryland just had some crazy losses.
Yeah, the Northwestern one, Ohio State. Ohio State really needed that game, and they just got all the great bounces to go their way, like with, Bruce Thornton banking it in. And Ohio State was kind of playing some really good basketball at the time, much better than when they went to College Park compared to what Maryland was at the time, like both times for the two games. So yeah, it has definitely been very tough. It's not easy to go on the road and win in the Big Ten. We've seen that. But they're still a lot of fun though. I think they do have the tools.
I do too. It's all gotta work out that you can't rely on.
We'll find out about the depth here, having to potentially play 3 games in 3 days, and their path did get a little bit easier, not having to worry about an Ohio State for a third time this year. But Illinois is also looking really good right now. Now I know Maryland went into Champaign and dominated them. I loved the high-low action that they were doing all game with Julian Reese and Derek Queen. But Illinois could come into that game with a chip on their shoulder to get back while they're playing some good ball right now too. But if they're able to get past Illinois, I still really like their chances to at least get to the title game. And so we'll find out what that depth is capable of in a quick turnaround type scenario.
Yeah, and you talk about that. It's 3 games in 3 days is tough for anybody. Any sort of team, whether you are 5 deep, whether you're 10 deep. That's just a lot of basketball not only we're talking a lot of basketball, a lot of high stakes basketball, especially for some of these fringe teams. If you're playing against a team on the bubble that maybe their only way in is they got to win the tournament. Yeah. Those are guys that they're going to give it their all. You are in for 40 minutes of a lot of intensity. So 3 games, 3 days. You're right. I think this is a big test. And, talk about kind of big tests and stuff like that. Got asked earlier today about the Michigan State game. Mm-hmm. So I want your perspective on this from an outside, kind of not the bias of people with the Maryland glasses on and everything. Mm-hmm. Could the Michigan State loss be a good thing in the long run? Could that heartbreak be kind of a humbling? Because, Maryland was kind of on this trajectory. They had just been kind of kicking ass. They've been out there. I'm bringing it up again. You got this dope nickname. Like everything was in the right direction. It felt like this team was unbeatable. I'm gonna say
probably the biggest game in College Park in years. Too.
In years, I had multiple Scott Van Pelt gifs of him doing Maryland stuff with the caption, "I guess we know who the best team in the Big Ten is after all." I deleted like 10 drafts after that ball went in. That ball went in the hoop. And I deleted everything.
I can't do that when I'm getting ready for I have to wait for the game to finish and then load it up because I feel like I'm just jinxing it then. But that is tough. That is very tough pain to have.
It is. That was so brutal. That was so because it literally. Oh my God. And then I took an alternate over and I was 1 point below. So I was like, it's overtime we just hit. I was like, okay, whatever. Maryland's either going to win here on the final play or we're going to overtime. I'm going to hit my bet and maybe Maryland wins there too. I was like, nothing but good could happen from this.
Yeah.
And then I realized I hated sports was really what I realized that night was that this is so stupid that I give this my time is what I really, my biggest takeaway after that ball went in. I was like, awesome.
Yeah, that was a wild game. It really, of course, it comes down to that. I could still see it though being a really good thing for Maryland. You have the learning experience with not taking the shot with 5 seconds left in a tie game where you want to make sure you still got 5 dribbles. That's 5 dribbles you can get to the rim. You got 5 seconds left. That's 5 dribbles you can get to the rim and get a good look that way. So a good learning experience there, and they showed themselves that they can battle with this Michigan State team who is looking very unbeatable right now.
It doesn't help
they have and everything.
I mean, you add in how well they're playing just in all facets. If you want to get into a running match with them, you might as well just leave the building. You might as well not even try. But then you realize that it's Izzo also, and it adds that extra of I'm not gonna lie. I've got a future on him. Yeah. I've got to. You got to win. Tom Izzo. It's January, February. Izzo. It's
yes, but this is his typical team that when they're really good, they don't go far. They're more terrifying when they're a low seed. So when North Carolina played them last year in the 1-8 round of 32, I was terrified the whole game. But something different about this Michigan State team. Honestly, because they do love to run and gun. Maryland played that game the perfect way to beat them, and that is slow it down, make it a defensive game. They have a good enough defense, and it showed in that game that, we can hang with these guys with the defense that they have. And I think if you get you get past Illinois, you get past whoever you play in the semis, Michigan or Purdue or somebody, and you get a rematch with Michigan State, you got to go back to that same style of play of just applying the pressure, making somebody else, like not Jace Richardson, make somebody else other than him beat you, or Jaden Akins, and then just walk it up the floor, run a nice crisp set, and get points out of it. And I think that's the perfect way to beat them, is just slow it down and take them out of their sorts.
Yeah, and that is how you have to, because like I said, if you get into this, oh, we're going to try to run with them, oh, we're going to play fast pace, they will pick your pocket, and then you're watching an alley-oop over your center. Like it is that it happens.
With Cohen Carr running down the floor, and he's just going to make an insane
sometimes
highlight.
Like 9 steps without dribbling, but that's besides the point. There were like 3 times where I'm like, I get it's a cool highlight, but we got to dribble the ball. I was like, this is getting ridiculous. Like I get we're doing it for the ESPN notification, but I was like, there were 6 steps. Let's move away from Maryland, Michigan State for a minute, because those are 1-2. Those are kind of, I think, where people are the hot teams, where people are looking right now. Is there a team in the Big Ten right now? Unfortunately, Ohio State's no longer in that conversation, but that you're looking at, and especially in this Big Ten tournament, that you're like, I would not be surprised if they win the Big Ten.
So this might not sound good just based off of how they're looking coming into it, but it's Wisconsin. Like they still have the best offense in the Big Ten since the start of February. I have my worries about Michigan just because we've seen here, especially as of late against some of the top teams, where they can't take care of the ball, where you're at this time, you need guards to win games, and the guards just aren't taking care of the ball. Maryland has some size issue, or not Maryland, Purdue, sorry. Purdue has some size issues where if they go up against a Michigan and have to deal with those 2 7-footers, we saw it just a few weeks ago, or against a Maryland and having to deal with Derek Queen or Julian Reese trying to get to the Big Ten championship game, I think that can really hinder their chances. The path kind of sets up for Wisconsin because UCLA is not extremely great away from Pauley Pavilion, and their offense can get stagnant at times, especially against a Wisconsin team that is not your typical Wisconsin, running up and down the floor, putting up a ton of threes. And John Tonji is a walking bucket, can just fill it up from anywhere. And then they potentially get a rematch with Michigan State in the semis, where I think they could have beat them if they shoot their normal, like if they shoot like normal Wisconsin this year. And Max Klesmit didn't play in that game, which is another 3-point threat that you have to worry about for Michigan State. And so it kind of sets up there for Wisconsin to get to the title game, and they've got the talent to maybe pull it away.
Yeah, Wisconsin, they are one of those teams where I watch them play, and you're kind of like, okay, you understand that they are there to score the basketball. And then you see the efficiency in which they score. That's the thing. It's never really a, kind of the opposite of even like a Texas A&M, where like they'll still score, but it's going to be all off of second chance points. It's going to be off of just chaos. Wisconsin just runs down, and you're like, that was way too easy. Like that was way when they're hitting the 3 ball. That's a very, very scary team that you got to look out for. Indiana's playing good ball. I saw some people actually on Twitter talking about them, just saying that they're just kind of hot coming in.
They're kind of a team of destiny right now, with Mike Woodson being done after this year, and they've rolled off some really big wins as of late. And they've got a great opportunity now to lock themselves into the NCAA tournament with Oregon and Michigan State in their path.
Yeah.
They're playing some good ball right now.
If you can knock those 2 off, it's going to be very hard to keep them out of that thing.
Yeah.
Let's, we've talked Big Ten, but I do want to talk everything. And Joe, I know you're always preaching it, but is the SEC that much better than everyone else this year?
It's insane. Like you're looking at they got the bracket up here right now. Like Oklahoma's the 14 seed, excuse me, in the SEC tournament, and some bracketologists are looking at them as a lock for the tournament. Like you would think going 4-12 in conference play or whatever they ended up there. I know they were 4-12. Yeah. Like that, like you're thinking NIT at that point, or now the crown, now that we have that. But yeah, it's it's insane what the SEC is doing. Auburn is crazy good. I love Florida with their guards. Yeah, they easily, if Oklahoma wins tonight against Georgia, they're going to end up with 14 teams in the tournament, I think, because I think Texas beating Vanderbilt today locks them in. If Oklahoma gets it done against Georgia tonight, who's looked at as a lock for the tournament, they're going to end up with 14 bids, which is crazy to think about as a conference that's more known for football. They just took advantage of the NIL like the ACC isn't doing, and that's kind of why we're only seeing potentially 3 teams from the ACC in it.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because let's even go back, 5-6 years ago, it was completely reversed. You're like, okay, the ACC is going to give you their 8 to 10 teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give you their normal. You'll get the Big Ten is going to give it. And then it was the SEC that you were like, all right, they're going to send a few. Like, we're going to get the usuals, the Floridas probably. Like, you're going to get your usual suspects, but you weren't going out there and you were thinking, hey, they're going to give you more than really like 5 or 6, on a good year.
Yeah.
It's definitely not 14.
If you would have told Alabama and Auburn fans 15 years ago that they were going to be 2 of the top teams in the country in college basketball in 2025, they probably just laughed at you and just walked away. Like, no, you're crazy because we're winning national championships in football. We have Cam Newton coming through. We got Nick Saban on Alabama just leading us to multiple national championships. They were like, yeah, no, there's no shot we are going to be one of the powerhouses in college basketball right now.
Yeah, and also just we need at least 1, if not 2 more Alabama-Auburn games. It needs to happen.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
It needs to happen. Just some of the best. Some of the most exciting basketball you'll see. But, yeah, I agree. I think the SEC right now is – and you kind of talked about the NIL money. It feels like they kind of took advantage where other teams were kind of in this feeling out era for the past 2 years of, okay, what are we doing with the transfer portal? Or I'm not saying that the SEC schools are used to just paying guys already, so with other sports, so it's just second nature. But the one conference seemed better equipped at the tasks than the others, and they were blowing people out of the water with the transfer portal and stuff. And that's how you see. I mean, you talk about kind of the 2 teams that are like the quote unquote teams to beat in all of college basketball, Duke and Auburn. You got Duke and you're like, oh, Cooper Flagg, the star freshman. And then you're like, Auburn, average age of the starting 5 is 24 and a half. So like it's two very different paths to winning right now in college basketball.
Yeah. Duke. I mean, obviously they've got the name. It's Duke and everything. You're going to get. That's one thing that's different about them is like, they're freshman led and scoring with Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple, but the pieces around that are really good pickups from the transfer portal. But you look at Auburn, they've got like Miles Kelly came from Georgia Tech. Janai Broome, I mean, he started his career at Morehead State, which is crazy to think about his path to where he's at now. And I mean, Alabama had great success in the portal. Like they brought Mark Sears in from OU, like Grant Nelson from North Dakota State, and Cliff Amore, who was one of these most sought after transfers from Rutgers, brought him in. You want to look at Dalton Connect last year from the mid-major level. How was Tennessee going to replace him? And they bring in Chaz Lanier, Elijah Martin at Florida. Like there is just a lot of impact transfers in the SEC that are going to have big moments here coming up in the next few weeks in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and that's kind of become the thing in college basketball. It's no longer scouting high school players. It's you scout mid-majors. Like if you're a top program, unfortunately for mid-majors, they're going to be looking at your guys. Like if you're sitting in, I'll use the Sun Belt, for example, for Marshall. If a kid comes into Marshall as a freshman and all of a sudden he averages 18 points, he's just going off and everything, I'm telling you right now, his goal ain't to stay at Marshall for 4 years. As soon as a Duke, as soon as an Alabama, Florida, one of those teams comes offering you and they're like, hey, you want to come compete for a national championship? Yeah. And then they didn't have to scout him. They didn't have to develop him. That's the biggest thing is some of these mid-majors, they've got to be besides themselves because you're doing all the developing just for when they finally reach that level you've been developing them for, it's like, I'm going to the SEC, brother.
Yeah. Well, before I get into this, name to watch for with the going into the transfer portal already, Trayson Eaglestaff at one of the Dakotas put up 52 a few weeks ago. He dropped 30 some against Alabama. So yeah, he's a name to watch for sure. But this is to what Rick Pitino has preached recently, that he's not even going after high school guys. He's not even communicating with anybody inside the top 100, anything. He is just going straight after portal guys. And like, if you look at that, like Kadari Richmond was a massive pickup for them. Ejiofor was a huge pickup as well, giving them some mass. He had the buzzer beater against Marquette. So yeah, you're going to see that a lot, and it can be good, and sometimes it can be bad. It's been great for St. John's, who built off the portal. Look at Ohio State and Jake Diebler's first year. The transfers really haven't panned out. Looking at North Carolina, they're on the bubble because their transfers haven't really panned out. So there can be a lot of hit or miss. Tennessee has struck gold the last 2 years with Dalton Connect, and Chaz Lanier is going to be an All-American, I think. So there is some good and there is some bad with going fully after the transfer portal, with going after mid-majors, because yeah, they can light it up in the you make me want to say Sun Belt again now because you just said it, but like they can go and light it up there. It may not transition to, I mean, Kay Tyson's a perfect example at North Carolina. Coming from Belmont, he averaged 16 a game, almost a 50% free three-point shooter, and he's hardly seeing the floor now at North Carolina. He was a Karl Malone watch list guy coming into the year and just hasn't really panned out. But you've also got the Kadari Richmonds, the Chaz Laniers, the Cliff Amoris, Miles Kellys, where it is really good when it strikes gold.
Yeah. And real fast, just to plug the show, this is Kevin and Zach React. I'm Zach Bonder. Joining me right now, we got Jacob Reimer. Reimer, real fast, what's your Twitter handle so people can go follow you there?
It is Rhymetime05. Rhymetime05, but the number 0.
Rhymetime05. I'm just putting that 05. That's it.
Yeah.
Rhymetime05. I put that in the chat, so go follow him there. And then just some quick housekeeping stuff. Next Thursday, Ryan Ripken Show, we're going to be up at Hollywood Casino. We're actually going to be doing tip-off for the college basketball tournament. We're going to be with Gary Williams, national championship coach for Maryland. So Maryland fans, we will be out there with Gary. Going to be doing tip-off with him from about 12 to 3. So I'm hoping to get to talk some solid basketball. I'm really hoping Maryland plays during that time period.
That'd be electric.
Hoping so we can watch that with him. But
that'd be very electric. Honestly, you don't want to be like that first game where it's the standalone, but like you want to be like in that mix to where like kind of craziness can happen. But of course, like Maryland, you want to kind of have a sweat-free get past the first round.
Oh, it won't be. I've watched this program for many years. I do not care who they play. It will be a 5-point game with 3 minutes left.
Especially if they're in like a 4-13 matchup. I don't want to speak it into existence, but just look out for High Point, because I think they're a mid-major that they are very, very energetic. They really lock up. They can cause some problems and really make some noise.
Yeah, and real fast, I thought this was funny. Jabo's saying Rocco's doppelganger. And Laura's saying he gave you better looking than Rocco. So hey. I think we can all.
I appreciate the kind words.
And hated to go with the question. Any chances Ohio State plays the first foreign date?
Unfortunately, I think with the loss tonight to Iowa, they aren't making the big dance. You can't get in 17-15. Would be crazy though, because a lot of people are looking at potential Ohio State Xavier in Dayton matchup there off of I-70 or 75 and 71 or 75 and 70 connecting. That'd be absolutely nuts if that were to happen. But man, I don't
just sent that you're looking handsome with the glasses on, so you're killing it. Everyone's agreeing here, Reimer. Everyone's agreeing here. But yeah, real fast, make sure you follow Reimer on Twitter. The dude is a college basketball sicko. he is watching games that I did not know exist while much better sporting events are on, like NFL playoffs and stuff. And he's like watching these mid-majors, like these 4-12 teams battling it out. We just got the full reunion right now. We got Malachi. It's like frathletes all over again. Yeah. So for those real fast who don't know, me and Reimer used to be a part of our little podcast back in the day. Malachi and Hayden Sini were also on there. But yeah, that was kind of before we all started doing our own stuff with media. But it's great always to be back talking ball. So I wanted to save this for towards the end. I got my Carolina blue on.
Let's go.
What's got to happen? What's got to happen? How are the Heels getting in, and how are they making noise?
They got to get to the.
There's the handle.
Yeah, was just adding that on real quick. I realized I didn't do that. But they looked great today against Notre Dame. Huge matchup now tomorrow with Wake Forest, where it's a likely scenario where it's an elimination game, and one team is increasing their chances at getting to the tournament. And if you lose that, you're out. And then they'll probably get Duke in the semis. It's tough to beat a team 3 times. They had that little stretch there in that game.
I thought they were going to do it.
I thought they were too.
I was watching.
Like, no way RJ Davis is not going to lose to Duke in his last game at the Dean Dome. And he is putting the team on his back, trying to carry them. And it just kind of just all fell apart down the stretch. Yeah.
I was thinking of you and Mal watching that. I was like, because obviously Duke took the lead and it was like a 9-point game. And then UNC came back and they took the lead. What was it, like 41? And
I had a 7-point lead early in the second half.
Yeah.
And then Duke went on to outscore them, I think, 33-13 in the last 15 minutes.
We have so much internal. We got Malachi saying, put the Heels in the tourney. They can make a run.
I'm with you.
Riley shutting it down. I got a devastating the RJ legacy game didn't happen.
It was looking like it was going to. And then there was that stretch between the 14-minute to the under 12 where he was on the bench. And that's kind of where Duke started to take off there and pull away from it. Offense stalled out.
I have to ask you because Joe's been begging me to ask about the Hogs. Arkansas, John Calipari. Can he choke with another team?
It looked like they were going to today. I mean, my goodness.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he tells them to miss the free throw while they're up 3. Like what? That's just insanity. Because then we need the Rothstein tweet to foul up 3. That's why you always foul up 3, because that's exactly would have happened if he did miss that. Thankfully, he made it. But they need a Duthiero back for sure. They were playing good ball. Won 4 of 5 coming into the SEC tournament. They look like they can make some noise, but I don't know. Cal and March has just not been a good recipe for success.
And especially his first year, I don't think this is how Arkansas is always. No. I think Arkansas, they're going to fight their way. They're going to be a top 25, perennial top 25 team, I think, under Calipari over the long run. But man, this first year, not a lot of the talent, especially compared to the rest of the SEC. Because that's the thing. Arkansas is got talent. We're talking about that. If Arkansas is in the Big Ten or the ACC, we're probably looking at them a lot differently right now. But unfortunately, it's not that they're bad or have lack of talent. It's just hard to play in the SEC right now.
Yeah, and it's a really good testament to how good Auburn is with their 16 quad 1 wins going through this conference. Really, really crazy. But yeah, I like that point about if Arkansas was just in another conference, they'd be like, if you put them in the ACC, like they're a top 5 team. You put Texas in there with Trey Johnson and Jordan Pope, they're elite. They are just they would be right there in the top of the ACC just because that's how down bad the ACC is right now. Yeah, I think they'll turn it around. They didn't have they're without Boogie Flan for the rest of the year, which hurt them a ton. If he comes back next year, that'd be a nice piece to have in the fold, a really good and electric young guard to have. But John L. Davis has that experience in the NCAA tournament. Fierro's got some experience. So we'll see. It's March. Anything can happen. But with Cal on the sidelines, it has not looked great in March. So we'll see.
Yeah, it is a major we'll see, especially pretty much with anything Calipari in March. It hasn't been a great time. Ron, I'm actually coming up to Columbus tomorrow. I will be in Columbus.
Oh, really?
Might have to hit you up this weekend. See if maybe catch some college hoops while we're
Absolutely.
down. This is I'm telling you, we got people saying, oh, Rutgers. I guess so. This was biggest disappointing college team this year. Ron, I kind of like this question actually, real quick. Rutgers is a good one because especially when you talk about the recruiting class.
Yeah. With Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, I feel like you can't not. I know Kansas is still going to be a tournament team, but they were the preseason number 1. And with what they brought in with AJ Storr, Zeke Mayo, what they returned, and Hunter Dickinson, like that's got to be in the conversation. Rutgers is right there. I'm trying to think of some others. I mean, Miami, oh my gosh, the drop off that they had and not even making the ACC tournament. Larinaga retiring during those season was just absolute craziness. I think you got to throw them in, but yeah, honestly, it probably is Rutgers having 2 potential top 5 picks on your roster and not going to make the tournament. That's tough.
That's up there, but Reimer, I'm not going to say it. Can you put UNC in this if they do?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you put UNC? If UNC misses the tournament, Reimer, we are
they miss the tournament, absolutely.
We are dangerously close to they enter that top 3.
Rutgers right now down to USC early on, 15-7, by the way. So that could be a very tough way to end the season because USC has not been good anyways.
Yeah, and Chris, glad you made it. We were actually talking earlier. I was bringing up some of the comments you brought up. And Ryder, this is Chris, who we talk about the diehards, the people that you want to make it and just kind of like be there for the good times. There is nobody that deserves Maryland football to be better than Chris. And Maryland basketball, talk about a guy who is just as diehard as it comes. So appreciate you tuning in, Chris. And Chris, we were talking about the Crab 5 for a while. We both agreed that kind of this team, the energy that they're playing with, defensively, if the offense gets, if it gets going, this team can be good. And really just, it all starts with, it starts with, as we said, you got to be able to keep the 5 on the court. If you can avoid foul trouble and it's Maryland's best 5 versus whoever's best 5, I like Maryland. I really do.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. The name and everything, Crab 5, like that is just a nickname for a team that needs to be put on shirts to go. I know it already is on shirts.
I know Jimmy's is a UNC fan base, but they need an NIL deal for the Crab 5. I mean, literally, it's their thing.
Yes, absolutely. That'd be that's just a match made in heaven right there. Like that is huge. But yeah, like they have the nickname and everything that is set up to power a run and sweep the nation. Oh, Crab 5. Like it just has it right there with it.
Okay, like the Crab 5 in the Final Four, like the Crab 5 Final Four, like there could be just some incredible, like that. Reimer, we were talking about this. The better Maryland does, the better everything. And just before we hop off here in a few minutes, me and Reimer will also be going live again after Selection Sunday. We'll be reacting to the tournament, talking about all the matchups. We'll go through them, just kind of give some predictions for all of it. Just talking more college hoops, and you can expect that throughout March. Hopefully Maryland goes on a run and we can talk about the action for some more. If not, I think we got to still, at least if there's some craziness, we got to talk about it. So, this will not be the last time you guys see Reimer on the channel. And then maybe Kevin won't have a cat problem and we can get more, but
Heck yeah. Get everybody in here. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's the Crab 5 versus the Hog 7.
Joe, you know,
I mean, that's not far-fetched of being a matchup. If Maryland like slips to a 5 and Arkansas ends up getting in as a 12, I don't see Maryland getting down to the 6 line and it being a 6-11. But if that were to present itself, I love Maryland.
Yeah, Joe said this earlier. That 4. Also, it'd be 4-13. Joe, do math. Come on, 4-13. Are you saying 5-12 or 4-13, Joe?
Yeah.
You know, either way, you know, if a 4 and a 12 match up, that would be, I guess, if they are in the Final Four together, that would be kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? You know what, Joe? Maybe you're onto something. I'm not
Or
gonna.
a potential round of 32 matchup.
Yeah. So you know, okay,
Mhm.
good point. You know what? Good point.
Yeah.
Joe, you're off the hook until Selection Sunday. You know, or you're off the hook. Yeah. So, Robert, do you know about this? Where does Maryland play in the tournament? Because I guess they haven't.
Yeah, it'll depend on. I'm trying to pull up like what the bracket, like what Lenardi has, because like it rotates each year, like for the first and second round games. Ideally, you want to be a 1 or 2, of course, to get regionally the best option. So right now, Lenardi predicts it to be Maryland as a 4. Oh man, I don't like what I said earlier because he has them playing High Point.
Oh my gosh, Reimer, you put it too much in the air. Reimer, if Maryland gets matched up with High Point and it goes down, I'm clipping this.
I may not be welcome on the channel again.
Joe said about the 4-12 match.
But it has them playing in Providence, so that honestly favors them. Not too bad, but
so we obviously earlier in the show, I gotta find this comment real quick. Earlier in the show, Hayden gave an update of also want to report live that American University is raining threes, going to be bet them heavy. We then got an update of further comment on American University. They keep making threes. Haven't seen an American shooter like this since Chris Kyle. R.I.P.
Yo. Oh my gosh. Man, so they're putting it to Navy.
Yeah. So and then right, we were just talking about this. I think Rutgers is, there's just disappointment. I mean, frauds, yes, without a doubt, but disappointment. I mean, I
think for me, if I had to go, it'd be Rutgers 1, Kansas 2, just because they're completely unranked and will probably be like a 6 seed. Shoot, I mean, you could throw maybe UConn into that mix too, being a top 5 team coming into it, and they're towards the bottom, but they're looking really good right now. North Carolina, if they miss the tournament, they'd 100% be in that list. Xavier's right there too, because they had a big offseason in the portal, but they're playing some good ball right now. Oh, okay. Cincinnati's got to be in that too. They were a top 25 team coming into it. They still have a top 25 defense, I'm pretty sure, and they're completely going to miss the tournament. They got to be in that conversation too, but it's still nowhere near Rutgers with 2 top 5 picks on their roster.
I'm trying to think of, honestly, a team just recently that has had 2 guys go that high in the draft and nobody has any faith in them.
Yeah. Like if they lose to USC, and unless it's some kind of crazy run that like they pull an NC State type run and roll through the Big Ten, which almost seems impossible, winning 5 games in 5 days in the Big Ten. I don't see it happening. Yeah. And it is very disappointing with the hype they had coming into the year.
Yeah. And I think this is a great way to, we've been talking about, the SEC teams. We've been talking about Auburn. We've been talking about Duke, the Floridas, all these teams. Chris brings up a great point. Are we just forgetting it? Is this just a Dan Hurley is going to just blow this bracket up? Like, I'm not talking, maybe they don't win it all, but is he gonna just mess some people up this time?
They're looking like they're going to be like an 8-9, maybe a 7 seed.
If they're an 8 or 9 and you are that one,
Terrified.
How mad are you? You're
Yeah.
like, we got the back-to-back defending champs in round 2.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a world. I mean, right now, Lenardi has UConn playing Mississippi State, and the winner plays Duke. So if you're Duke, like, you got to be fuming at that. And it's going to sound crazy. Wouldn't be shocked. Would not be shocked if UConn did something crazy, just because I'm still go in and out on Duke, whether, like, with how bad the ACC is, will they be ready for that NCAA tournament tight game against, especially if this were to happen against a Dan Hurley led team.
Rutgers, actually, I'll give them credit. They just hit a 3 to get into double digits, but they were with 9 minutes left with 9 points. And actually, we have not talked. Let's talk this real fast. St. John's.
Yeah.
That's a team that is starting to hit their shots, starting to play. And I mean, is there, dare I say, is there anyone that can match that Rick Pitino aura in March? I mean, if they go on a run, we're talking.
Yeah. Need the white suit out and everything in San Antonio. I don't care what happens. If they make the Final Four, I need that white suit out.
Has to.
Yeah, if you're a 1 seed, because I think their ceiling, if they go on to win the Big East tournament, is a 2 seed. If you're a 1 seed, you do not want them in your region, because we were kind of talking about this with Maryland earlier. St. John's has shown, especially against Marquette, I know it went to overtime, but they can win a game in the 80s. It's because of that physical, tough defense. They just play true New York City style basketball, bully ball, and it's a team that if you are within the last 5 minutes and it's a tight game, unless you have some elite guard play, like if they were to play a Florida with Walter Clayton Jr. or something like that, or a Mark Sears. But I think teams like Auburn has shown, like Denver Jones has shown, that Mark Sears is guardable. And I think St. John's could guard him. But with the talent they have defensively, RJ Luis Jr., Kadaria Richmond, that's a nasty duo. QB edge of 4, he is a nice piece down low. They've got all the tools as well, and they have some depth. They can go about 8 deep. So I think that they could go on a run for sure. I get worried though if their shot making kind of stalls out and they get up against a team that is one of the best teams, one of the best offenses in the country, and it's just lighting it up and their defense isn't working, and it comes into trying to claw themselves out of the hole. And I don't know if they could do that.
Yeah. Well, and kind of as we wrap up, we got someone said, where is it? Yeah. So Brady saying, we'll go for Big Ten just at this second. Is there a matchup, obviously, that you
obviously right now you want Iowa. I don't think you want Illinois in this quarterfinal game, because Illinois is playing some really good basketball. Outside of that, I think if you beat Illinois or Iowa in the quarterfinals, I think you want Michigan, because they can win that game like they did a few weeks ago or this past week in Ann Arbor, with just disrupting everything they do offensively and forcing turnovers. If you have to go up against a Braden Smith, especially in March, I don't like that. I would much rather, if you're a Maryland fan, I would much rather want to play Michigan to then get to the title game.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where, and, Chris saying Michigan, agreeing with Michigan. I think Michigan is just, when we talk about matchup wise, they are, and I'll go back to their just inability, when they aren't even getting shots off because they're turning it all over so much.
Yeah.
And then you add that with how tenacious Maryland's been defensively at times this year and how they play. I think that is a perfect matchup for them.
Well, and if you get Purdue, you still have the size. You have the advantage on the inside with the size, unless Trey Kaufman-Renn decides to have the game of his life. But that's what worries me, though, is the Braden Smith factor and how he can create no matter who is guarding him. If it's Gillespie or Rice, he's still going to find a way to orchestrate the offense, get others involved, and get guys going, and will make it a very interesting game because guards win games in March. And in the Big Ten, there's none better than Braden Smith.
Yeah, and then I see Chris talking about the Michigan State little fiasco with the senior. He's saying Holloman broke his heart 2 weeks ago, but he loves sticking up for his players. Man, we talked about that shot way too much. I told myself I was only going to bring it up like once. I feel like we keep
talked about it 5 times, I think.
I know. And I'm the one who keeps doing it. You've been beating around the bush, avoiding the –
yeah.
I'm the one who keeps on being like, and then – Yeah, I mentioned Rice earlier, but exactly. So many of these guys get, especially Rodney Rice, we talk about might have been 1 for 12 to start the Penn State game, but the most important thing was he hit the shot that mattered.
He's still a big-time shot maker. Yeah. He's still.
You talk about you gotta have ice in the veins. Like you've got to have that cool and calm, collected going. Hey. Like I've missed legitimately almost every shot I've put up there. Game on the line, running floater, nothing but net. Let's go play. First time beating Penn State in Penn State in like a decade. Like it was 7 years, 8 years. Yeah, first time they'd won in.
I've never picked up on that trend. Holy cow, that's insane.
Yeah, Penn State has owned them. So
wow, that's crazy to think about. Holy cow! But I mean, yeah, they. Like I was saying, I think they've got the guards to if they go up against. It was 10 years. It was 10 years. Wow. I don't want to say I take back what I said. I don't want to mention Auburn, but like I'm just trying to think of a team that has bigs a front court that would be better than Maryland's, and. I mean, Illinois is honestly right there with their front court. If Morez Johnson is healthy, I think that's a better comp than Auburn. Alabama, maybe. I think because they're not really good defending on the perimeter. I think that's a game where Gillespie or Rodney Rice can go and just win it for Maryland.
Yeah, and they're gonna. That's the thing is they need one of them. Miguel Rice, Gillespie. One of them has to be on because usually if one of them is on. You can kind of, I don't want to say lean on him exactly because they're so great at playing team ball, but they are also great at knowing who has the hot hand at the moment. It's a very unselfish, we're going to win as a team, but they're also in that moment. They're like, okay, Rice has the hot hand. We'll go to him for 4 straight possessions. We don't care. Then all of a sudden we're going down to Queen, going to Juju, whoever it may be. And that's just been the kind of their successes. All 5 of them at some point can get hot throughout the game. They're very good at identifying who's hot at the time and kind of helping ride that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great point because I was sitting here thinking of some other teams that have front courts. Ray in the chat mentions Florida. Yeah. I don't like that matchup for Maryland because they have the guards that can defend in a tight game, like with Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, who I think should have been an all SEC defensive guy. But I think the better draw for Maryland would be Alabama because they can defend and cause problems for Alabama's front court or back court, and they can hang with Grant Nelson and Cliff Amore down low, I think.
Mm-hmm. Florida's a team that I really like. Obviously.
Me too.
That got that's kind of where we'll say, and then Hunter saying Young got valuable minutes last 2 minutes. Yeah, and we talked about this, at the start of the show. You're going to need them over the next this if you go 3 games in 3 days, you need the bench. You can't go 5. These guys ain't playing 120 minutes in a 3-day span. So that's kind of where we stand with that. Chris says, we'll get a Ripken Show bracket challenge. And Chris, actually, I'm sure you'll enjoy this as well, was telling everyone next Thursday to start the tournament tip-off. Me and Ryan will be at Hollywood Casino in Charlestown Races, and we will be hanging out talking to Gary Williams. So national championship winning coach Gary Williams is going to be down there with, or I guess up there with us. And that's going to be a ton of fun. Super hype to get his thoughts on Maryland right now. Really hoping Maryland either is playing that day at least so I can get that. But yeah, and then Geronimo does nothing but dunk and cause chaos.
But you need that. You want chaos kind of in an NCAA tournament. And if he has a massive poster dunk that just brings the energy with Maryland, that'd be huge.
Whereas then, it's about an hour from downtown Baltimore. It's over in West Virginia. Charlestown races Hollywood Casino. So, yeah, it's always a great time. Come on out for the live event. I know there's also you can obviously the casino is free to go in, but if you want to be a part of the event, I believe they're selling tickets. So yeah, but Reimer, it's been a hell of a time. Went a little bit longer than than we were thought, but it's always we knew we had a lot to talk about. There's just so much going on in the March Madness, just the craziness of it all. So Brooks, I don't know who Gary Williams is. I really don't. I'm not sure. So we're gonna find that out next Thursday. But guys, make sure hit that like and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Go follow Reimer on Twitter right now. This is if you want college basketball and you are hitting the peak of college basketball, if you want to know what's going on with every single game pretty much happening, you want to see it all, get the breakdown of it all, go follow Reimer on Twitter. Reimer, where else can people find you? Do you have TikTok, stuff like that? Is there
I'm on TikTok. It's Jacob Reimer 5 on TikTok. I'm on Instagram as well, RhymeTime05 there. That's where I post most of my content out there.
And can people watch Mad About Hoops? Where is it, or listen?
So it's not on YouTube. We will be doing a live show during the selection show. It's on 97.1 The Fan, YouTube, here in Columbus, Ohio. We'll have something there. But Mad About Hoops, we're on anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any place you listen to your podcast. We'll be on there.
Awesome. So go check him out there. Go follow him on Twitter. We're going to be back to go over Selection Sunday and cover all the madness throughout. Maybe Kevin won't have a cat issue. Maybe he will. We'll see what happens then. But that'll do it for this edition of Kevin and Zach React. Have a day, have a night, and we will see you guys next time.